In this podcast episode, Ben Shapiro delves into President Trump's pivotal appearance at the World Economic Forum in Davos, highlighting key developments concerning U.S. Europe relations, the Greenland negotiations, and diplomatic tensions around Iran and the Middle East. The conversation also covers domestic policy moves related to biomedical research, political dynamics surrounding Gavin Newsome's Davos visit, and reflections on the evolving global order. President Trump made a notable entrance at Davos, walking a literal long red carpet and delivering a speech that called on European nations to bolster their defense, economic policies, and sovereignty. He emphasized the necessity for Europe to up their game, criticizing what he described as the continent's stagnation and departure from its foundational values that once made it the center of Western civilization. Trump highlighted the failures of Europe's green energy policies, specifically targeting wind energy and its economic downsides, citing China's dominance in windmill manufacturing without substantial domestic wind farms. He stressed the cultural and economic bonds shared between America and Europe, but warned against becoming complacent. Trump rebuffed claims of being anti-European by underscoring his European heritage and framed the U.S. as the economic engine whose prosperity benefits the world. On defense, he critiqued NATO allies for relying excessively on the U.S. military shield without reciprocating fairly, pointing to Canada's perceived ingratitude during trade disagreements. His stark reminder that without American involvement in World War II, Europe might have fallen under German or Japanese control resonated as a key underpinning of his argument for stronger transatlantic ties tied to American leadership. A major diplomatic subplot involved Greenland, where President Trump had previously threatened sweeping tariffs on Europe if Denmark refused to cede sovereignty over Greenland to the United States. Trump framed Greenland as strategically vital for defense, asserting that ownership was necessary rather than leasing military bases to ensure robust protection against Russian or Chinese threats. He acknowledged the historical context of U.S. control in Greenland during World War II, which was later returned to Denmark, and leveraged this to argue for reclaiming jurisdiction over parts of the island. Amid market concerns triggered by the tariff threats, a deal was announced at Davos that averted tariffs scheduled for February 1st. The framework reportedly grants the U.S. sovereign base areas in Greenland comparable to the British model in Cyprus, allowing American military operations and potential exploitation of rare earth minerals with fewer restrictions from Denmark or Greenlandic authorities. While this does not amount to full U.S. ownership or Greenland becoming a new state, it signifies a meaningful expansion of American military and economic control in the Arctic. European reactions were mixed, with some leaders viewing the agreement as a wake-up call to strengthen Europe's independence, while NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg reassured that the alliance with the U.S. remains firm and indispensable. California Governor Gavin Newsome's presence at Davos added a layer of political intrigue. Newsom met with Alex Soros, son of George Soros, a prominent figure in left-wing global politics, fueling criticism of Newsome's claims against crony capitalism. Newsom downplayed Trump's Greenland rhetoric as insignificant and emphasized the need for negotiation rather than confrontation. Maintaining his long-standing knee-pads jab against Trump supporters, Newsom claimed European leaders appreciated his stance against political submission to Trump's agenda. This positioning, according to Shapiro, is a shrewd political maneuver that elevates Newsom's profile by antagonizing the Trump administration while appealing to his Democratic base. However, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent fired back, mocking Newsom's economic acumen and highlighting his lavish lifestyle during pandemic lockdowns. Newsom also faced a last-minute cancellation of a talk with U.S. officials at Davos, which his team attributed to political pressure despite denials from organizers, underscoring the fraught tensions within the American political sphere abroad. The podcast turned to international security with an in-depth look at Iran's ongoing unrest. Shapiro outlined alarming estimates of up to 14,000 casualties among protesters amid government crackdowns, with the Iranian regime maintaining a stringent lockdown and internet blackouts. President Trump claimed the U.S. had successfully obliterated Iran's nuclear ambitions through decisive action, yet acknowledged the regime may attempt to rebuild capabilities from new areas. The Iranian government released a propagandistic op-ed blaming foreign terrorists for the violence and justifying harsh responses, which the Wall Street Journal editorial board contested as falsehoods. Meanwhile, White House insiders were reportedly presenting the president with a range of decisive military options, including sustained campaigns to destabilize or remove the regime if protests persist and international pressure mounts. In response, Iranian military spokespeople issued threatening rhetoric warning the U.S. of devastating retaliation in case of attacks. However, historical context suggests such threats may carry limited weight against American military power. The administration's diplomatic efforts included plans for a new board of peace intended to oversee Gaza's rebuilding and governance. The board is envisioned as a multinational body, although the current invitees include countries and leaders with questionable records and affiliations, such as Russia's Vladimir Putin, Belarus's Lukashenko, Qatar, Turkey, Brazil, and Pakistan. Shapiro expressed skepticism that such a diverse group, some known for supporting Hamas or other destabilizing forces, could effectively manage peace or reconstruction without undermining U.S. and Israeli interests. President Trump maintained optimism about the board's composition by stating that controversial figures were necessary for tangible results. He also expressed confidence that Hamas had agreed to disarm, though given Hamas's historical resistance to relinquishing arms, concrete enforcement remains uncertain. The episode underscored that the success of this initiative hinges on convincing both Gaza's militant factions and regional powers to genuinely commit to peace, a tall order considering ongoing hostilities. Trump's remarks extended to the Ukraine conflict as well, where he planned to meet with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. He urged both Zelensky and Russian President Putin to finalize a peace deal, labeling failure to do so as stupid. The podcast highlighted the lack of Russian flexibility so far and stressed that peace will require significant concessions, a political reality not yet embraced by Moscow. The broader question Shapiro posed centered on whether the current global dynamics signal a return to a multipolar world or represent a renewed assertion of American influence under the America First philosophy. The tense exchanges at Davos and the evolving U.S. foreign policy posture underscore ongoing uncertainties about the future international order. Shifting to domestic affairs, the episode featured an interview with Dr. Jay Bhattacharya from the National Institutes of Health discussing the Trump administration's expanded ban on federally funded human fetal tissue research. The policy now restricts funding not only for NIH intramural projects, but also for extramural research involving tissue derived from elective abortions, although tissue from miscarriages remains permissible for research. Dr. Bhattacharya emphasized that scientific alternatives such as induced pluripotent stem cells have largely supplanted the need for fetal tissue, mitigating concerns about hindering medical progress. The policy is framed as a moral imperative to avoid complicity with abortion-derived materials, appealing to constituents with ethical objections while still allowing crucial biomedical research to continue unhindered. This move reflects the administration's broader effort to align science policy with conservative values and public health pragmatism. Throughout the episode, Shapiro also highlighted promotional content for Daily Wire Plus, where a new cinematic series, The Pendragon Cycle: Rise of the Merlin, is streaming exclusively, providing patrons with original entertainment. Additionally, advertisements for Pure Talk wireless plans and Policy Genius life insurance were interwoven, emphasizing economical and practical options for listeners. Finally, Shapiro teased upcoming content for members, including Supreme Court stories and cultural commentary, inviting listeners to join the subscription service for full access.